there's this word, this concept in anthropology that is known as liminality. It sounds a lot like luminous, but it's not. Liminality. And it is derived from the Greek word that means threshold. And what liminality is it's a threshold between previous ways of structuring your identity and instilling a new way that usually takes place through some sort of a ritual. An easy way to kind of explain it is, in our culture, marriage is one of these things. Two individuals, they walk in as individuals. They go through the process of the ceremony, which is that liminal phase. It's a ritual, it's very symbolic. And at the end, the way a wedding usually ends is, for the first time I introduce to you Mr. and Mrs., and the ritual ends, and you enter society again, but now as a unit, as a married couple. This is a weird example, but a lot of industrial cultures don't have these liminal rituals that some non-industrial societies have. And so this is a very important thing for most people in their lives. Adolescence can be considered a liminal state. It's a process of changing, becoming a youth, a kid, into becoming an adult of some sort, no matter how responsible or irresponsible afterward. That's sort of how it works. One of the things that people share when they're in a state, one of these liminal phases together, is a word that they use. It's called communitas. And communitas is a way that these people going through a liminal phase are together. And it's founded on humanism and equality, and it's against hierarchy. And it's also has to do with spontaneity and a warm touch and these types of things. And usually something is bestowed upon you that you can take into that transitional, that next phase. And there are so many people who can live their entire lives in a liminal state. They live their entire lives in a place that doesn't fit into the norms and regular modes of society. I feel I've always been one of these people. I've never belonged wherever I've been. I always feel I'm on the fringe of things. A lot of artists feel this way. A lot of people who just live as I do as a 32-year-old who doesn't fit the mode of a 32-year-old in modern society. Career, owning a house is one of the most foreign concepts I think I will ever have. That's mind-blowing that someone can buy a house. If I can pay a $300 a month rent, I'm excited. Buying a house is absurd. And these are different things that are expected of an individual at his age in society. And so I've always felt I lived in a liminal state. And when I learned about this term, it sunk. It was like, that's beautiful, that's perfect, that's what this is. And most art comes from these things, from this sort of being on the fringe of what is society and what is acceptable and expected of you. My relationships with women are greatly influenced by the fact that I reside in this state constantly. The relationships I've had with women over the years tend to be very short-lived. My longest relationship has been a year, and that was insanely long. And I think the only reason it lasted that long, and not in a way of like it's a torturous sentence, in a way that it was long. I'd never been around a person that closely for that period of time. And part of it was because it was long distance, and so I had space. So no, and it's funny, but it's the truth. I'm a person who lives in solitude. I need to be alone. It's something that's incredibly important to who I am and what I do. And so relationships tend to infringe on that a little too much a lot of times. And so the relationships I have tend to be these very short-lived things. And I read a quote from Lao Tzu today that was, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you are anxious, you're living in the future. If you are peaceful, you're living in the present. And this is something I take a lot of heart in, that I believe with the center of me that this is the way the world should be. It doesn't mean you don't think about the past. It doesn't mean you don't think about the future, but it means you don't let them possess you and control your thoughts. You don't obsess over them. And so I take a lot of pride in taking the work to be peaceful and to be in the moment. And I take relationships with anybody, but especially with women, as moments, as things that I brief periods of time. And they're painful. It causes heartache and heartbreak and these things all the time. I'm sort of in a place with women that if a woman is established in her role in society, she probably wants nothing to do with me. You know? And it's because of my instability. It's because of the fluctuation in how I do. I haven't lived in one place for more than 2 years in 15 years. And that may not be changing anytime soon. And that's how that works. And so the women I tend to be involved with are sort of passing through a phase in their life, and I tend to be this vestibule, this little corridor between them transitioning from one phase to another. And when they come into this place, I know it's temporary, and I know it's brief, but I don't concern myself with that. I concern myself with the moment and being in it. And I'm willing to pour my strength and my knowledge and my ability to converse and my ability to support and grow and build and my heart into those things wholly in those moments, which is a very hard thing to do because the overwhelming majority of people are scared of their heart, and they're scared of how many times it's been broken and how many times it's been shattered, and they think that they can't handle it being happened again. And I take so much pride in standing in this spot and saying that, here, take this, look at this heart, and look at how mangled it is. Look at how bruised and cut and gouged it is. Look at how many times it's been shattered and broken, and I put it back together every fucking time. And I will continue. This is hugely important, and it's like, hold it, and be careful with it. Not because I don't want you to break it. That's what happens. That's what they do. Be careful with it because I'm not a very good surgeon. And the amount of times I've stitched it and sutured it and glued it back together, there's jagged edges and they're sharp and they may cut you, and I apologize. But take it, and when you step out the door to the other side of where you're going, I hope I've given you something to take with you. And I sit down with the broken pieces of that heart and go back to my small little emergency triage kit and work on putting it back together. Because there's a certain nobility in the fact that you cannot be destroyed by another individual. You may feel destroyed, you may feel broken, you may feel wrecked, but it doesn't actually exist. You can put it back together every single time. The heart is the only part of the human body that needs to be destroyed and broken in order for it to grow and build and know that you can love harder and longer than you ever thought possible. Wow.